Are you prepared to transform your well-being? I'm Sanjay Raja. My mission is to challenge our perspectives on food, fitness, and overall health. I own a successful nutrition and fitness business based in Orlando, Florida. And through this experience, I've learned that there's no one-size-fits-all solution. From creating delicious and healthy recipes, to training elite athletes, and even writing the book, The Food Talk. I've accumulated a wealth of knowledge, but here's the exciting part. There's always more to discover. That's why I'm embarking on a journey to connect with leading experts, unveiling the secrets to a happier, healthier life. Together, let's explore innovative ways to enhance our well-being. This is Recipe for Wellness. Welcome back, folks, to another episode of our podcast, Recipe for Wellness. So I have the distinct pleasure of bringing a guest on who was on two different segments we did for two different episodes. She was on the episode we did in Orlando, which I believe is episode 3. And then we did another one with her in Los Angeles in her beautiful home in California. So her and I are kindred spirits in our distaste for sugar. And anybody who knows me, I've talked about sugar for a very long time, but Samantha takes it to a whole new level in a good way. So that being said, Samantha Taylor, welcome to the show. We've missed you. It's been so much fun getting to know you. So how are you doing today?
Doing great. Yes, I was thinking about how much fun we had and how much I've learned from you. You're just an encyclopedia of knowledge.
Likewise. I've learned quite a bit from you as well. And what's the interesting part about talking to you is that I think we talked offline just a little bit, but I'll share with the audience, and that is Samantha's accolades, I cannot do justice. So I'm going to have her tell us about herself. And that way we get to know her, for those in the audience who don't know who Samantha is. And then we're going to talk about some really interesting topics that are really relevant today. But first, Samantha, tell the audience who you are, what you do, and how you're changing lives.
Well, the short version of a very long story is when I was 17 years old, I got into fitness. And my husband at the time, my late husband, he was a bodybuilder when we met. And he's like, look, if I'm going to date you, we got to go to the gym and you got to have food in this house. And I literally was a 17-year-old. I lived on my own with my sister. I left my house young and I had broccoli in the fridge for the iguana and ketchup for my French fries from fast food. So like that's the only thing I had in the house. And he's like, this is my life. Fitness was his life. So
Mhm.
I just got into fitness, thank God, very young, and how impacting that is when you are
Mhm.
a teenager. It can totally set you up in different ways than if you wait, a lot longer. So I got into fitness very young, and then I've always been an entrepreneurial spirit. I had
Mhm.
parents who are entrepreneurs, and I just always knew I wanted to run my own business. I also am not that 9 to 5 kind of person that can just sit and I've never had a 9 to 5 job ever in my entire life. So like I'm just
Mhm.
very independent on the go and just like being outside and stuff like that. So I started my own business. I started personal training people in people's homes, and then I did that for a few years. And then it was really hard to build a real income doing that with all the travel and whatnot as well. And then I was a waitress. I waited tables for 10 years, so I knew a lot about food and serving people as well. And then I got into a gym, a large corporate gym, and just knew that fitness was my passion and I wanted to get back
Mhm.
to that. I just had such a hard time making income at it that I just figured I needed to go into a gym. So I went into a large corporate gym. They had 16 gyms all over the nation, and I quickly became the number one trainer in the company out of 2,000 trainers. I produced more
Wow.
fitness business than anybody in the history of their corporation. So that was such an honor and such a amazing experience, just from the gym perspective there. And you know that being in
Yeah.
fitness yourself.
Yeah. So what's unique about you, Samantha, is that we've talked to so many different guests on the show for season 1, and we're lining up people for season 2. But I think I had some of the most interesting conversations with you, if I recollect. So that's why we had to bring you back twice during the show. So for those who don't know, and I am hoping you could share this story with our audience because I think your backstory is amazing. So
Yeah, that was my
Samantha,
next part is the food issues.
yeah, so Samantha and I share likeness in many areas, including fitness and basically getting off sugar, which has changed our lives in so many ways. But Samantha, you wouldn't know it by looking at her. She was an addict for a long time. And when you told me the story, it blew me away. So can you share with our audience where you started from to where you're at now and why you're so passionate about what you do?
Yeah, so during the time that I became the number one trainer in the company, I was still a drug addict. I was a food addict. I was
Hmm.
struggling with, my husband who was dealing with mental health issues. We were going through domestic violence. I don't even know if I got into that with you, Sanjay.
I think so.
Just emotional abuse. I was dealing with so much abuse in my home, but then also I just dove into my career. It was like my
Hmm.
outlet to sanity and really my relationship with God. I dove into my relationship with God and my career.
Hmm.
And those things helped me to not lose my mind with the level of intensity I was dealing with at home, but also I was coping, medicating myself with drugs and alcohol and food
Hmm.
and sugar. So I was a massive sugar addict. So I was a major drug addict. I got off drugs by God's grace 25 years ago. And
Hmm.
then I still struggled with food. So my addiction went from drug addiction to now, and I was always a food addict anyway, but now it got worse. Like sugar addiction became my cocaine, if you will, because it's just as addictive as cocaine. There's been proof after
Yeah.
proof that's shown that with the brain,
Hmm.
and you know that. So, I was just medicating myself with sugar and food and trying to cope with the level of intensity that I lived under. And then just little by little, I started to really read the Bible. I dove into the Bible and started to understand what scriptures said about how I could change my mind and my life. And I just started to
Hmm.
do that little by little. And I not only got off drugs, but I overcame binging. I mean, I had a binge eating disorder where I would eat
Hmm.
10,000 calories in meals. And I never purged because I could not
Wow.
stand vomiting. And God truly protected me because I know that's a horrible thing for people to deal with. But I
Yep.
never went that route, thank God. I would just be so sick. I felt like I was going to throw up. And then I would stop because I had to. I felt like I was going to throw up. And it was
Wow.
just totally out of control. And that was when I was at the gym, and then I finally left and opened my own studios. And this is the journey when I got off sugar. And I remember my husband, who was my personal trainer when I first met him, we really iron sharpened iron, the Bible talks about. Like we were so great with
Yeah.
encouraging each other, even though we had a lot of issues at home. He was still my coach and my motivator, and we just would have seminars in our
Hmm.
kitchen, 5 hours every night about nutrition and changing your lives and stuff like that. And he said to me, "I bet you if you got off sugar, your business would explode." Now he was eating
Hmm.
sugar with me. So I'm like, well, hello, you bring it in half the time. So you're coming off sugar with me. So we both did it together. And for my 40th birthday, that was my present to myself, was I was going to
Mm.
go 90 days with no sugar. Well, it took me 7 years to get to this point. I was on and off sugar over 100 times. In that 7 years, I couldn't break it. I could
Yeah.
not shake it. It was just
Hmm.
to control my life. I mean, I would eat whole pans of brownies, whole pans of cookie dough. I mean, it was insane. I could not go a day without even, 6 hours without sugar. So I went 40 and 90 days for my 40th birthday.
Hmm.
And I made it. And I was so empowered and I felt so incredible. And I felt so shocked that I could say no. Like I
Yeah.
never experienced that before. It was always like my kryptonite, that Superman, like you show him kryptonite, man, he just loses all his power. I was like that with sugar, like forget it. Everything went out the window, man. When that cake was there or brownies, forget it. I was gonna eat it all. But then
Yeah.
when I could actually look at it and say no, I didn't even know that that was possible. So when that happened,
Yeah.
I was like, I'm all in. I'm going to keep going on this train, and I haven't had sugar in over 10 years. So I just turned 50.
So you don't look 50, by the way. You look amazing.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. And here's the interesting thing that is you and I talked about this a lot when we were together on the show, which is you, myself. I even interviewed a gentleman for episode one. He was one of the chefs competing on Hell's Kitchen with Gordon Ramsay. He was 650 pounds. And one of the things he did to change his life was he got off soda and sugar. And it was a daily affirmation. And he said the same thing you did, which was it was a struggle. It was a crutch. He was doing drugs. He was addicted. So all forms of addiction led him back to sugar. And so once he took that out of his life, it changed him for the better. Now he's a different guy, just like you, just like me. So talk to our audience about how you identified sugar was the issue among all the other things going on in your life, which you had a lot going on. How did you say sugar is the thing that's really getting me? And what was the first step for you to start getting it out of your system?
Well, I think because I had the benefit and the knowledge and the life of being in health and fitness since I was 17
Hmm.
years old. 24/7, I had a gym around me. I had a bodybuilder husband that was always talking about fitness. It was always on his mind. We were always talking about health and fitness. So, and then my business. So it was like, it was always around me. And then I had done like 200 seminars. I was always teaching it. I had a radio show. I had a TV
Hmm.
spot on, so it was like always in front of me. And, they say whatever you focus on is where your life is going to go. So
Yep.
because I think that that really positioned me to be more equipped to make that decision because I knew more science about truly what it was doing to my body. And also being an ex addict, I really had two powerful combinations together because now I can understand, well, wait a minute, the body is going to respond like this, and I'm going to get these diseases, which is
Hmm.
undeniable. The amount of diseases connected to too much sugar. There's
Yep.
no more sugar coating it anymore. They can't get away with it. They can't deny it. It is everywhere. So the
Yeah.
proof is astounding. So I just finally realized, honestly, my breaking point. You want to know my breaking point? It was a
Please.
painful one. I actually was speaking at a convention at a women's conference, and I was on the platform with some a very popular, one of the most renowned Christian speakers in the world, and I was so like amazed that had this platform now. Like this was just so
Hmm.
amazing to me, and this was like over 10 years ago, and I went on a 3-day fast of water only, and I had
Yeah.
never done that before, and phew, that was tough, boy. I mean, it was a spiritual fast. But so this weekend was a weekend of Halloween, and they were eating cupcakes and
Yeah.
chocolate. There was candy everywhere. So I'm
Yeah.
fasting. I've not eaten food. I've never done that in my life to that point. So I'm
Wow.
on water only. Like day two, I am like about to lose it, and they're putting cupcakes on my table. They're coming over with cupcakes. They're talking about cupcakes. It's like cupcakes everywhere. So
Yeah.
I made it 3 days on this fast. Well, when I got home, I was so obsessed with cupcakes that I went on a hunt to find these types of cupcakes because I wanted them. And I
Wow.
found them, and I ate nothing but cupcakes for a week straight. So here I went on this 3-day water fast, oh, so super spiritual,
Mhm.
going to help change the world, Samantha Taylor. And I'm on the ground crying to my husband
Yeah.
because I could not get it together. And I felt like
Yeah.
so pathetic. I just was
Hmm.
so heartbroken that I was living my life like this.
Hmm.
And although my husband had a lot of issues, he was also my greatest encourager. And I was on the ground. He was literally holding me. I'm bawling my eyes out. And he's
Hmm.
like, Samantha, one thing I know about you is you're going to figure it out. You're going to get it together and you're going to be able to do this. And, it was just those dark moments that you realize I don't want to live
Hmm.
like this anymore. I don't want the medical issues. I was having massive memory problems,
Yeah.
massive. Like I could not remember if I just went to the bathroom. I couldn't remember where I placed a check. I would lose things like crazy, and I was having linguistic problems where I was combining one end of a word to the beginning of another word, and I'm like, this is really serious psychologically. Like I think there's a problem. And both my grandparents died of Alzheimer's, and they were both
Hmm.
grandmothers, and they were major sugar addicts. So I started putting two and two together. And I'm like, I wonder if it's the sugar. And I was only 39 at the time. And then I got cancer on my shoulder. My
Mm.
teeth has started having all kinds of problems. I got tested and I was pre-diabetic. Oh, I was furious when I went to the
Yeah.
doctor. And I'm like, okay, brain problems, vision problems, teeth problems, skin problems, cancer, blood sugar issues, almost diabetic. This is insanity. I was a health and fitness professional at 39 years old, and I'm facing all these things. And I was
Yeah.
like, it's got to be the sugar. I knew enough about science that I knew that I couldn't be in denial anymore. And when I had that
So
little identity crisis on the ground, crying in my husband's arms, and I just realized I have an option. I can either be that person that stands up on that platform and helps change the world and gets my mind
mhm.
together and my life together, or be crying on the ground because I can't stop eating cupcakes.
Well, it's that moment where we hit rock bottom, right? We always hear that with people who are drug addicts, alcoholics. It's that rock bottom moment. And, you know, I was, I wouldn't say teased, but I was told that I was really dramatic for calling sugar a drug, which it is. It's labeled as a legal drug. It is what it is, right? And that's what people
Those
don't seem to
people that don't
understand.
want to hear that are in denial, and they
Yeah.
want to excuse themselves. Sorry, I know it might hurt some people right now, but those
Yeah.
that will not accept that truth are doing that because they're like, oh, I want to pacify the fact that I can still eat this and still give it to my children, and don't call it a drug. That's so wrong. Well, let's look at the reality and not be in denial. I mean, that's a truth.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. And, it's amazing why it's so ubiquitous in everything we eat, in products, because the sugar lobby, especially in Florida, is one of the most powerful lobbyists group in the state of Florida, where I'm at. And we don't do enough, I believe, to really warn people about the dangers of it. I mean, there's health warnings here and there. Do you know how long it took for the FDA to just not say sugars, but added sugars, to add that little extra label? It took years of lobbying for them just to say, oh, by the way, there's more sugar in this than you actually think there is.
Yeah.
And just that little change did shift a lot of people's thoughts and perceptions. And I use it as a tool when I train my clients, when I train people, when I talk and do lectures about, just look at that extra little line. You think you're getting 5 grams? Look at the extra 10 grams you're getting on top of that. And you think about, in a day, how much do we consume? It's like salt, it's just everywhere. And so you have to be super vigilant about it. And I can tell you from my personal story, that's how we related so well. Was the minute I got off of sugar, I felt all the inflammation out of my body really just stop. Number one, I could think clearer. I felt more successful in what I was doing. I was sharper. Uh, Being at 48 now, I feel better than when I was 28. So it's just so many different things that we just don't correlate to eating too much sugar. And you're proof of that. I feel like I am. That gentleman in Hell's Kitchen that we interviewed is proof of that. So once you identified the problem, what was your methodology to get it out of your life?
Well, I knew being an ex addict as well that I had to just get it out of my body. That even
Hmm.
though and trying to come off of it for 7 years, remember this is not just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna stop eating sugar. No, it took
Yeah.
me forever to do it. Now
Yeah.
I can help people do it really quick, but it took me a long time. And
Hmm.
I knew that the only way to truly stop cravings is to get it out of your body, period. Like you
Right.
just have to cleanse your body and get it out. So the first 2 weeks, can be pretty tough for a lot of people. And those are definitely the hardest. There's so many alternatives out though now that you can have that kind of they taste like sugar. You don't want to eat them too often, but man, I didn't have any of that stuff 10 years
Hmm.
ago. So I didn't have all these little fake chocolates you can get as much, as they have now, which it's so easy to come off sugar. So I think because of the severity of the medical issues that I started seeing, I started realizing that, oh my goodness, I need to do something. I'm only 39 years old. And because I was in a business of, I trained over 10,000 clients in my studios, and I had a lot of clients in their 60s, many clients, most of them were in their
Hmm.
60s. And no kidding, did I tell you that when I sat in front of clients, I would know by their skin if they were a big sugar eater. And I would
Oh,
always
wow.
ask them later, and I could tell because typically people that are massive sugar eaters have a lot more wrinkles, their skin collapses a lot easier, and
Hmm.
they age a lot faster typically. So to me, I was worried a little bit about that as well. I mean, hey, why not age slower if you can, right? So I just noticed those things, but then also the medical stuff. And then when you talk
Yeah.
about the mental side, so I was at a gym, I left the corporate gym,
Hmm.
went out on my own, almost lost everything because it's way harder than it
Oh
seems
yeah.
on your own, as you know. And the expenses
Hmm.
were just through the roof, and I almost lost
Yep.
it all. But I got off sugar, and I took my husband's challenge, and he did it with me too. So I made it, and then I was like, that day that I turned 40, we were at a horse show called Cavalia. It's like Circus Delay on
Hmm.
horses, and it's spectacular. Now, I had been to this horse show probably 5 times before, and my favorite part about the horse show was the buffet at intermission because they had so much sugar. Like it was a crack house for sugar addicts because you're just like, oh my gosh, brownies, cookies. Like it was insane.
Yeah.
Well, every time I went, I ate so much sugar, I almost had a heart attack. Like I would literally have heart palpitations. When they say
Yep.
death by chocolate, like literally, I felt like I almost had a heart attack because I would eat like 3 to 5 thousand calories and then go back and sit in the rest of the show and be like all
Right.
sleepy and weird feeling. And I would hide my plate with a napkin so people couldn't see when they walked by because people always knew me everywhere I went. Like you're a
Yeah.
celebrity. So it's like, I can't be binging in public. Somebody's going to recognize me. Anyway,
Yeah.
so like I covered all my stuff up with napkins and I'm like, oh, I hope nobody sees me. But I'm like gorging all this stuff. Well, I went to this horse show and it was my 40th birthday the next day. So I still had one more day to make it to my 40th 90 day, my 40th birthday goal. And that intermission, we walk in and the smell of all that stuff comes in. And I
Hmm.
mean, I knew I wasn't eating it. I'm like, I'm doing this thing, I'm doing it. So we drink a bunch of coffee and water. And then we get in the intermission, out of the intermission, and do the rest of the show. And in the show, if you've ever seen a circus show, there's like horses running around and
Yeah.
acrobats everywhere. I mean, it's beautiful. And there's like all these people flying around with these hanging ribbons. And I just knew at that moment that this was a game changing moment. I felt so incredible that I made it, that I
Hmm.
didn't do it. Like I was so high naturally by not doing it. I felt like I could run through the wall. Like it was so amazing. And the lady next to me had a wine in her hand and 2 cookies in another. And she's like, hey, did you go have cookies? I was like, no, I didn't. And I had to tell her why because she's like, well, you're amazing. So I had to tell her why. But she was falling
Yeah.
asleep in 30 minutes while I'm having a life changing moment. And I literally saw like a book in my mind. Like today is a day that chapter is closing. And you
Right.
have a choice. Either go back to sugar prison or you can make a choice right now to not touch it again. And I knew
Yeah.
in that moment that was going to change my life. And I haven't touched it since, even 3 months before. That was a game changing moment. And I just love
Yeah.
those because that can happen. And then I went and opened 5 personal training studios. So my business was
Hmm.
going under after being the number one trainer in the company, went out on my own, almost lost everything. And then I opened 5 personal training studios at a 7-figure business, employing 100 trainers. I mean, we just crushed it. But my brain was so clear. I could think so clearly. I was so confident and so clear headed and just I literally felt like I was on a brain powered drug that was totally natural. It was amazing and still is.
So, all this kind of insight is an awakening on so many levels, right? For me, it was the same thing. I thought I was in pretty good shape, but I had so much sugar in my system. It's still part of my life. And for me, it was a can of Coke. I had to have a can of Coke every single night. That was me.
You?
Yeah.
Oh my
I haven't,
gosh, I can't
yeah.
even imagine it.
I know, right? It was crazy. And what happened is if I didn't get it that night, I'd be upset and just pissed off the entire day. And I couldn't figure out why. And then I realized and traced it back to that. But getting back to this point, which is this is going to show my age, which is back in the day, 80s and 90s, they came out with sugar free, or excuse me, fat free snack wells. You remember snack wells,
Oh yeah,
right?
I've pounded
And they
many
said,
boxes of those.
yeah, so did I. And we were duped into believing that fat was the enemy, that it's all fat all day. And they loaded it with sugar, so it tasted fantastic. I remember this. I would eat their little deviled cookies that were chocolate outside, chocolate inside. I was like, this is fat free. It's fantastic, right? You know?
You can eat 5 boxes. It's okay. Yeah.
Exactly. So they do this into believing that. So there's so much misinformation still, even with all the research, with all the data out there about sugar. So that's one piece of the puzzle. But I know you and I could talk about sugar all day, but I want people to watch our episodes because you get so much good stuff out of it. What I really want to transition to now is what I learned from you, which was how you're incorporating spirituality into how you help people. So give a little bit of background here. So tell the audience kind of your background, your faith, what you believe in, and how that has transformed your life. Because I'm friends with everybody. People who are religious, who are non-religious, or spiritual, non-spiritual, to each their own. But for those who are spiritual, I think this would be really helpful to learn how you incorporated that into being healthy, to being successful, so they can incorporate that into their lives.
Yes, it was a huge part for me. So, I had written many books, done many seminars. I had my own radio
Hmm.
show, TV. So, if someone had the knowledge how to change, the head knowledge, it would have been me. Like
Hmm.
professionals should have enough information, which we have more than ever, and we're more
Yeah.
messed up than ever as a whole. Most people with the things we struggle with. We're not getting better; we're getting worse with addictions and food and medical stuff. So when I started diving into the Bible, it really started because I was the number one trainer in the company and everyone
Hmm.
was looking up to me for this kind of stuff, but yet I'm binging on whole pizzas. And I actually got busted at the pizza buffet. I went into the pizza buffet. I'm hiding my logo with my hair, hoping nobody
Wow.
recognizes me. But
Yeah.
I'm a public little local celebrity, so people always recognize me. So I go in
Hmm.
there and I'm binging on like literally 5,000 calories of pizza at the buffet, get a couple thousand calories of the dessert pie up there. And the server comes over to me and she looks at me and she looks at my plates and she goes, "Aren't you that health expert in the paper?" And I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, busted." I'm like, "Oh, this is a cheat
Yeah.
meal. You didn't read that article?" And she's like,
Hmm.
"Whatever," and walks away. I felt like I was busted on the 9 o'clock news,
Hmm.
number one trainer hiding by her hair, busted eating at the pizza buffet. And I went back in my car and I remember bawling back to the gym because I had clients I had to
Hmm.
train. And I felt like such a fraud, such a hypocrite. Like I just couldn't get it together. I just
Yeah.
couldn't figure it out. I had all the head knowledge and I couldn't figure it out. I even taught people, how to lose weight. So I went back to the gym and I got on the treadmill, bawling, tears streaming down my face. And Christians believe the Bible talks about that God can speak to us, though it's not an audible voice like a hello, but it's an internal knowing. It's an
Hmm.
awareness that God is instructing me, He's guiding me. And He's taught me how to be sensitive to that voice. And He started encouraging me about my body as the temple of God and that I
Hmm.
didn't have a right to abuse it. And I was just so devastated because I didn't know how to fix this problem. I felt like a complete hypocrite. I wanted to quit my career because I could
Yeah.
not figure it out. And God just encouraged me and reminded me of scriptures. And, the Bible says that when we believe that Jesus Christ, from a Christian perspective, died for our sins, we become born again, and the Spirit of God lives inside of us, that we are the
Mm.
temple of God. And I took that so deeply that that was my responsibility to honor this body. And I just was just so confused though. I'm like, well, what do I do? I have all the head knowledge. And God just inspired me that it was a heart issue, that it wasn't about head issue. It was about my heart. And I needed to
Mm.
deal with my heart issues, with my food addictions and how it's really replacing my drug addictions. And I need to learn how to cope with my issues at home and not turn to drugs, which was food and sugar too. So I just
Yeah.
realized at that moment that I needed to surrender to God, honestly. I
Mm.
needed to get into the word, I needed to pray, and I needed to ask God to help me. And boy, did he. And I'm telling you that within a couple of months, I was completely freed of my binging disorder. I still
Hmm.
struggled with food, sugar here and there, but I didn't binge on it like I used to. I would still want to eat it, but like the binging was gone. And
Hmm.
that just came from understanding scriptures, like, what does the Bible say about the power of God living in me, about how I can have self control, how I can control my thoughts from a godly perspective, and that I have every right to do that. And I shouldn't let my brain just run around and do whatever it wants.
Yeah. So This is really interesting because when I met you, we kind of had really long discussions about this, how spirituality plays such a big role in your life and how it's changed you in so many different ways. So I saw a documentary on Netflix called The Blue Zone, and I'm not sure if you've seen that documentary, but it's talking about the healthiest places on earth where people live to be very old age, centenarians. So they looked at places like Japan, but they found a place in California, in fact, where the Adventists have set up a city, and they combine their religion, and in the tenets of their religion is honoring their body through nutrition. And what they're finding is that they're living longer because they've included nutrition in their way of life, which is spirituality, which is a big part of what they do. So, for our audience, talk to us about how you incorporate that on a daily basis of nutrition and spirituality. How do they go hand in hand? Because people look at it as two separate things sometimes, and educate us on how you look at it as they go hand in hand.
Well, that's a great point. So I don't separate God in any area of my life. It's not like I have God time on Sunday and I go to church and then that's the only time I communicate with God, which is how most people live a spiritual
Mm-hmm.
life. To me, God is in every area of my life 24/7. And when I started to incorporate this awareness of God's presence all the time, it started to affect my thinking, what I would watch, what I would listen to,
Mm-hmm.
my food issues. So when I realized that my body was a temple of God and that the Bible told me that one of the effects of following the Spirit of God was self control, it's called a fruit
Mm-hmm.
of the Spirit. And when you walk after the ways of God, you actually should have self control because you're an eternal spirit living in this human body that has cravings, it has desires. The Bible calls it animalistic nature and animalistic flesh, but we have a spirit that's eternal. So there's this really interesting mission we've been put on, that we're this spirit in this body that we have to learn how to manage and not let it dominate us, not let it
Mm-hmm.
control us. So this is where when I started to find scriptures about that, it empowered me to understand that this is so much bigger than a diet. This is so much
Mm-hmm.
bigger than losing weight or just getting off sugar. I don't even do weight loss programs anymore. My TV show, which we'll get into soon, is all about
Mm-hmm.
how do you change the way you think? How do you do it through the Bible? And it's going to change every area of your life. That's how I changed. It wasn't a diet. It was getting closer to my relationship with Christ and understanding what scripture said about how to transform your life. So it became
Mm-hmm.
an all consuming, ever pervading part of my life that God is in every area. He's not compartmentalized, He's in every
Mm-hmm.
area of my life, including the food that I choose. Am I going to put garbage in this temple? Am I going to destroy the temple that God has given me that the Bible says He resides in? That's a very
Mm-hmm.
big responsibility. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not something to take lightly, especially as a believer. So I took that very seriously when I really read those scriptures, and it totally changed my life.
So, it's interesting. The messaging that you have is it's different from what I talk to people about, but it's very similar line of thinking, which is if you're honoring your highest version of yourself, why wouldn't you feed yourself the best food, right? Why would you pollute it with sugar and just horrible things you don't need? Now, you can enjoy life, absolutely. Enjoy life to its fullest, but there's always moderation, which is what I fall back to, which is moderation's key in life. Too much of anything is not good, right? And I know a lot of people in our audience rely on spirituality and faith as kind of their, the backbone of what they believe in. And so I think this conversation is really important because a lot of those people don't know how to tie those two together. And I think having you on and just showing people that what you did to tie the two together, where it's pervasive in your life every day with every single choice you make, I think that's such an important point.
Yeah, and it makes me think about a really so I've been studying the Bible very intensely for about 25 years. So I knew I was going to be in some type of platform really teaching the Bible. So I'd done
Hmm.
Bible studies. I go back in the Hebrew and Greek. I spend hours. Every day is at least an hour a day for like the last 25 years, give or take a couple of days. And then when I go deep into
Sure.
study, it might be 3 or 4 hours. And I don't say that to pump myself up. I say that to say I study the Bible. So I have found so many scriptures. I mean, it's like a treasure hunt. And the more I find, the more I am astounded of how much real practical knowledge there is in the Bible about how to change your life that was written thousands of years ago that is
Hmm.
so relevant for today. It is shocking. Like it just blows my mind. So,
Right.
that's the part that one of the Bible studies that I did was on something that Jesus actually taught about called soul food. And he
Mm.
didn't use those words, but there was a story where he was talking to a woman at the well, and she was a Samaritan. He was Jewish. So normally they didn't communicate very much. And he said to her, woman, give me some water. And she's like, oh, you don't even have a pail to put it in. And he said, if you knew the water that I could give you, you would never thirst again. And he talks
Mm.
about how when you are feeding your spirit, when your spirit is full with the presence of God and you are making that a part of your life, you will have less desires to serve the flesh because you are now so full in this area of your life that is so ignored by so many people that your desires change. You don't want to do the same things anymore. And it was so interesting. This is where I spent like 8 hours when I found this because I could not believe the scriptures I was finding. And when the disciples came back, they went to go get food and they came back with food and they're like, Rabbi, here's some food, eat. And he said, I've already had food to do the will of my Father. He said, I have meat that you do not know of. And that word meat means food, but it also talks about soul food. So he's
Mm.
saying, wait a minute, that he went to go get food. He came back to feed because Jesus ate food all the time. But at this
Right.
moment, he was so engrossed in telling this woman, it was the first person he told he was the Messiah at the well. It was the first person he ever told, and it was a woman. So he said, I have meat that you do not know of. And they're like, hey, who fed him? How did he get food? But he was talking about the spiritual life that he was living and nourishing. The will of the Father was nourishing him, that he didn't need food at that moment. So I just was so impacted by that soul food. Feeding your soul is so critical. And it's something that people are starving of. And that's why we're
Hmm.
so malnourished in our body too, because if you get stronger in your spiritual life, then you can notice it show up in other areas. Now, I have to digress on that because of course there's a lot of people that have a strong spiritual life that are highly struggling with food issues. But I'm just
Hmm.
talking about a different level of experience with God that maybe they haven't reached yet either.
Right. Right. So, like I said, I could talk to you for hours about so many different subjects about sugar, spirituality, all that good stuff. So, this is a good segue because I want everybody to know kind of what you've been doing since last time you and I were together filming the show, which is going to come out next month. I'm so excited. Can't wait for the world to see you. And some of the interesting conversations we had. So, since you were on our show, I call you one of our rock stars, honestly, when I talk to people, because you took it to a whole new level with your mindset, your concepts,
And
and it's just amazing. So tell us about your show that you got right after you were on our show.
oh my gosh. Well, I have to give you credit, Sanjay, because we did a call and it was like, "Oh, well, do you want to have your own show?" And I was like, "I don't want to have a show talking about health and wellness. That wasn't what I knew I was supposed to do, even though I'd done it for 30
Sure.
years." And I said to you on the phone, "If I could have a show about talking about the Bible, now that would be
Yep.
totally different." And at the
Yep.
time, I wasn't really thinking much of it. And then
Yeah.
within literally a month, God opened the door for me to submit
Mhm.
a pilot about a TV show called Divine Life Transformation. And I take people all over the world to epic scenery, New Zealand, Fiji, Hawaii. I just filmed in Fiji. I was riding a horse bareback in the Fijian Ocean while the drone was following us around. We had a
Yeah.
1-year-old colt that was the horse's baby that was following us us in the ocean. I mean, I felt like I was dreaming. I have
Hmm.
helicopters drop us off on the top of mountains in New Zealand. We were kayaking in Fiji, blue ocean waters to a private island. I mean, we go to some epic spots. And I just talk to people about how to change your life. So God just gave me
Yeah,
this idea to be different than just like standing on in a church with a Bible, which is still amazing,
sure.
but that wasn't my calling. My calling was to take people out into epic scenery and talk to them how they could change their life.
Well, this is the power of stepping into the unknown. Because I remember our conference call initially, and you had a lot of reservations, like anybody would. And so just listening to you and talking to you, I said, I think you want your own show, honestly. That's what it sounded like to me. So, and I know
Uh,
you marinated on the idea, and then we came back and talked again. You said, yeah, this is kind of maybe what I want to do.
well,
And
I
you made it
knew
happen.
I was transitioning though. So I went from my set. Oh, I didn't mention my company. I had to
Mhm.
shut it because of COVID. So
Yeah.
like my company got totally impacted by the pandemic, and I had a seven-figure business, and I had to start shutting down studio after studio.
Hmm.
And then in the midst of that, my husband of 29 years suddenly became ill and he died. And
Yeah.
it's just so intense life. And I was with him since I was 17 years old. And he was in the
Yeah.
best shape of his life. He had just entered the Mr. Florida Bodybuilding Championship and was going to
Hmm.
be competing in 6 weeks. And I didn't know that he was taking a bunch of drugs, medications for the bodybuilding. So he was
Hmm.
mixing steroids and testosterone. And after he died, I found 11 medications that he was injecting. I found them in
Wow.
his drawers, and I did not know because he already looked incredible. He was a natural bodybuilder, and then he didn't look any different. So one might say, "Well, how did you not know?" Because he looked incredible already. He trained for 35 years.
Yeah.
So it just when all of that happened, it was just like what am I doing with my life? I've lost my business. My husband is gone. Like, who am I? Like, I had to figure out who I was. But at
Yep.
that moment, I knew that it was a turning point. I had such a risk of going back to drug addiction, alcohol, sugar. Those three things were my vices before. And
Hmm.
I just knew that I could not allow trauma to destroy me. And I thank God I had a relationship with Christ. Honestly, losing a spouse is some of the most painful
Hmm.
things you can ever go through with death. And it was brutal, but God's comfort just comforted me. And I just knew that I could not turn back to any of that stuff. So I thought I was going to build weight loss programs on the internet. I thought, okay, I'll go to coaching, I'll go to digital, I'll do all this stuff. But God just started bringing me to this direction of teaching the Bible. He's like, I want you to teach people how to change their life through the Bible. And I'm like, all
Hmm.
right, let's go. You open the doors, I'm there. And here we are. So when I was in Fiji, and again, you were the inspiration of this. I mean, the idea of being on PBS on the show, that's why I'm just so excited how it all
Yeah.
kicked everything off. And then when I was in Fiji, I knew it was time for me to write my first book. And I
Yeah.
stayed a week later. I took a ferry over to a private island. I locked myself in this Airbnb on an island in Fiji, and I wrote my book in 6 days. So
Wow.
that is going to be published soon. And I'm just so excited for it to get in people's hands.
So the list of things that you got going on is just such a long list. So if you can, so tell us where your TV show is airing and on what network so people can find you there.
The best thing to do is go to my website. So
Hmm.
divinelifetransformation.com, and divine is Divine. Go to there because you can get an app. You can stream it on an app that's a free app, or you can
Awesome.
watch it on television. It is on national television, but not everyone has cable these days. So you can watch it on there. Sometimes I
Hmm.
post them on my YouTube channels, but the main place to watch it is on the app you can download called the Pray app. It's an amazing app. If you go to pray.com, you can get that for free. I have a show that airs every week on there, and I also have a radio show every week. So on
Nice.
Saturdays, you can hear my radio shows. Some of my topics are how to renew your mind, how to activate your self control,
Hmm.
how to take godly control of your thoughts, how to be happy. Like, I mean, I deal with life stuff, but through the Bible. And that's where it's just so exciting to, have this opportunity.
Yeah, and then tell us about your book. When's that coming out?
The book is going to be pretty much called Divine Life Transformation Embracing God's Plan for Lasting Change. And I just go
Mm.
through 8 principles that God used to totally transform my life. And it's just diving into the Bible. So I truly believe it's going to impact millions of people. So I'm so excited for that to come out. I don't know when it's going to be published, but go to my website and get connected there.
So, Samantha, what's coming up on the horizon? So you've got the TV show, you've got the radio show, you've got the book coming out, and every time I connect with you just to check in and see what you're doing, there's always something new. So what's coming down the pipe for people to see you?
Well, the main goal here is to have a platform for people to transform their lives. So,
Hmm.
how do you do that? Is you need to have places where you can learn and grow. And so, I'm going to start eventually doing online conferences and where I can do
Wow.
3-day workshops and stuff like that. So, if you go to
Yeah.
my website, divinelifetransformation.com, I have a texting community. And if you enter your texting number there, I'll send you notes. You'll get my, sermon, not sermons, but episodes. I'll send those to you when they come out. So that's the
Yeah.
best way to get it. But the goal is to have big, massive online conferences where we've got tens of thousands of people attending them, and I'm just showing you how to change your life, really specifically through the Bible.
Absolutely. So, like I said, Samantha, we could talk pretty much for another 3 hours. It would be just the best conversation I've had all day today. But that being said, I am so happy for all your success and what you're doing in your new TV show and your platform. You're changing lives for the better, and I think it's a fantastic thing. So, Samantha is going to be on 2 different segments on 2 different episodes of our show, Recipe for Wellness, which is going to start airing in January 2025 for season 1, and we are in pre-production for season 2. Yeah, so we're doing some big things, but I can't wait till everybody sees you. You could share your message, and it's just going to be some interesting conversations that people are going to watch, and hopefully it'll change some lives like you've been doing on your own. But I want to thank you for your time, Samantha. Keep doing what you're doing. And before we sign off, can you tell me kind of one thing to the audience they could do right now to change their life in terms of mixing spirituality and their own personal health? What could they do right now?
I think the first thing is to take responsibility. Because if
Hmm.
you don't take ownership of your body, God gave you this body to be in charge of. He gave it. The Bible says he knew us before he put us in this body. So our eternal spirit was given this body and we are in charge of it. So if we
Yeah.
don't take care of it, that is the one thing, think about it, that your body is the only thing you will be with until the day your spirit leaves this earth. So it's
Hmm.
just wild when you think about it. You're not going to be with any human longer than your own self. So it's like if you don't take care of you, nobody's going to take care of your body like you're supposed to. So part of
Yep.
that is to take responsibility and recognize that it is your God-given responsibility. And everyone comes from a different religious background. I believe in the God of the Bible. If you haven't read the Bible or maybe have, get a Bible and start to read it. Get a version like a New Living Translation or one that's a little bit easier to read, not like a King James, but just start to read it and study it a little bit and see how it can transform your life. And lastly, I'll say one of the most powerful things that anybody can do for their health is to reduce the amount of sugar you eat, period. So
Yeah.
if you can do anything and you don't do anything else with your health and wellness, start tracking how much sugar you eat. Because just like Sanjay said, the total added sugar on the labels, the American Heart Association says that we should not consume more than 25 to 35 grams a day. I think that's still on the high side. But the
I
point
agree.
is, good luck trying to get that little amount of sugar. You will be shocked how
I
fast
know.
it adds up. And it'll freak you out at first because you'll be like, oh my God, I've already had it in the first meal of the day. So, that's where just if anything, if you don't get anything out of what I've said or Sanjay or anybody, just
Mm.
know that if you don't get control of your sugar issues, it will impact your health and you're going to regret it. So you've got to make that decision. You know what? I got to take ownership of this and I can't just lay down
Yeah.
and die and let these diseases destroy my life and be like, I don't know how that happened. Well, you ate 8 donuts and ice cream every night. So it's like that's where the responsibility, truly comes in.
Yeah, no, I think that's perfectly said. And that being said, Samantha, thank you so much for this interview because every time we talk, it's so impactful. I believe you and I are changing lives for the better. And I'm one of your biggest fans, so I'd love to see you fly as you've been doing. But thank you again for your time. And we're going to see you down the road for sure. That I do know.
Thank you so much. God bless all of you. And it was an honor being here.
Absolutely. All right, folks, catch us again for another episode of Recipe for Wellness, as we'll be doing a weekly podcast. And our show's coming out January 2025 on PBS and public television. I can't give it away, but we're going to be on some bigger platforms for season two. So it's exciting times for us. But thank you, everyone, and we'll see you soon.